Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. It's my honor and pleasure to have back once again here on Public Broadcasting Simeon Schindelman, who is the CEO of Brighton Health Plan Solutions. Good to see you, Simeon.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here again.
You've been in the health insurance, health care industry for a few years?
More than 30. More than 30.
Biggest changes going on right now, other than, or is it, frankly, as we do this program in mid-July 2017, is it, hey, what's going to happen in Washington, or is there something else going on?
This is, in my 30-plus years in the healthcare business, health insurance business, absolutely the time of the greatest change I've ever seen. And some of it has to do with Washington, but I would tell you most of it is driven by people who deliver healthcare, people who buy healthcare, people who receive services from healthcare. It's happening out in the community.
You mean market forces?
Market forces are beginning to take shape and have influence in ways they didn't have 10 or 20 years ago.
Consumer expectations / demands today versus 10, 15 years ago?
Well, consumers expect a lot more today in healthcare as they do, I would say, across almost anything they do in their lives. Healthcare has been difficult. It's been opaque, and therefore...
Opaque?
Opaque. It's been difficult for consumers to understand differentiation between healthcare providers, between health plans, if they get their coverage, say, through an employer. And consumers are looking for the same kind of cost and quality information they get in other marketplaces around the country.
And your organization, Brighton Health Plan Solutions, trying to deal with that via an initiative called CREATE.
CREATE is a brand or a product within Brighton Health Plan Solutions. Brighton Health Plan Solutions is a business that's been around for a long time. It has 3 main products, and 2 of them are names you know, and we serve clients across the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. One of the names is MagnaCare. Second one is Brighton Casualty Solutions. And we've just begun to get into the market with a new brand, a new product called CREATE.
What is it?
CREATE serves group health plans. And when I think of groups, I think of employer-sponsored health plans. I think of health plans that are from Taft-Hartley funds. We think of unionized organizations. CREATE serves all of them. And fundamentally, the business thesis of CREATE is something I don't think you'd see from a health plan or a health carrier anywhere else, which is we believe in the alignment of the interests of all the parties in the healthcare system. And we work incredibly hard to align the interests of the patient, the family, the healthcare providers, doctors and hospitals, and the people who pay for care. That's the employer or the union or the Taft-Hartley fund.
How challenging it is for us? We're a small, not-for-profit, but highly entrepreneurial production company, or we wouldn't be on the air right now. We have to figure those things out. We have to figure out how do we deal with the health insurance for our people. And we're always struggling, like, how much do you contribute? How much do you ask people to contribute? What's the economic model that makes sense? What's the insurance plan that covers the most for them and their families? How do we know that as CEOs, as people who are running organizations? It's not our expertise.
We think at our company there are 2 important components to that, maybe more, but certainly 2 that we highlight on. One is it's important for organizations like yours, for any kind of group buyer, where it's not their expertise, and it's rarely the expertise is to have an advisor. And we work closely with, and we have a lot of faith in, the consultants, the advisors, the agents and brokers who specialize in making recommendations and giving advice. That's, of course, very important. The second element is we encourage employer-sponsored, Taft-Hartley fund-sponsored,
Explain the Taft-Hartley thing, because you're actually making reference to, Taft-Hartley, which was legislation passed a while ago on the federal government that changed what?
It changed the way that union-sponsored, unionized plan participants can be collected together to have a single program. It is a little bit complicated, but it means that a union can span multiple employers. And that's that's maybe an arcane detail, but you could have, for example, electrical workers in a single health plan, but they may work for many different employers at many different jobs.
And Taft-Hartley allowed for that.
Taft-Hartley allowed for that, and we're a pretty big player in that business across New York and New Jersey.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Simeon. The most common mistakes you think most consumers / organizations, businesses make when it comes to health insurance?
There are two. One is for the employer or the plan sponsor, and that is not giving enough power to the consumer. Consumers need power, the decision making. We need to make sure that consumers have the kind of information they need to understand cost, to understand quality, to make very carefully thought out decisions on who they seek care from.
What should they be asking? What should be specific, because it helps people right now. Some questions that should be asked.
Consumers should ask about quality information. What can you tell me? What can you tell me about why I should go to that doctor? Why should I go to that hospital? Or ask them directly. The forces, the market forces that are available elsewhere in the economy should also be available in the healthcare business. When I talk about market forces, when I think about marketplaces across the country, I think of forces that drive cost down and quality up. And a well-armed, knowledgeable consumer will help make that happen in healthcare as well.
I know it's dangerous to do this, Simeon, but you and I have had offline conversations about a whole range of things, but one of them is the future of healthcare. Do you have any sense as to the next 5 years in health insurance, healthcare, and where we may be going? Or is that largely also driven by Washington and the Trump administration?
We tend to think, Steve, that it's not going to be driven as much by Washington, but again, by market forces beginning to take hold. And this is a big part of what we do, but it's also how we look at the healthcare economy as a whole. More knowledgeable consumers, armed with greater amounts of information, expecting market forces to operate, cost down, quality up. I make well understood and carefully thought out decisions as a consumer. That will drive change in healthcare. I talk very frequently about the application of market forces. That can bring costs down, that can bring quality up, and that can make sure that the most effective healthcare providers are the most successful. And I think that's what we want.
Final question. Everything you just described does require a degree of engagement, education, and commitment on the part of consumers to just be more involved, as opposed to, I don't know what's going on, I turned it over to my broker or you can't do that anymore.
You can't do that anymore. And to directly address that, one of the areas that we think about that's very important is that consumers need to make decisions ahead of when crisis strikes. People need to be researching and thinking before they don't have the time to do it. And in our business, Create, one of the tools we bring, we think the very important tools, is we help people do that in advance of when the pressure is on and it may be more difficult to make a well thought out, carefully reasoned decision.
Consumer education more important than ever before. Simeon Schindelman, CEO of Brighton Health Solutions, this new initiative called Create. Check them out, check it out. It's an important conversation because could be one of the most important decisions you make for you and your family. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
Good to see you. Appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.